You need to discuss that. I can explain how that works. This is a real killer. Are you ready for this one? One more thing I want to say about the stretch IRA. There's nothing, and I've seen this time and time again, when people come to me too late. Nothing irritates me more than people putting money away in an IRA that's a tax shelter of sorts, that's meant to help you save money, and then their heirs, your children, take the money in the wrong way where it's taxed at a penalty. Does anyone know what that penalty is if you take the money improperly? You're absolutely right, sir. It is the highest penalty in the IRS code, 50% if you don't know what you're doing. Another reason to come talk to me. And believe me, I've seen it more than enough. So, we've talked before about IRAs. Now we're going to talk about something. We're going to switch gears a little bit, and you're going to wonder what this has to do with IRA plans. And the short answer is everything, but it's not going to seem that way in the beginning. So, in looking around at this room, I'm guessing we're probably around in our 50s, 60s. And that must mean you probably started your family, I don't know, probably in the 70s. That was a long time ago. 70s was about 40 years ago. So you probably didn't really catch a good roaring market until the 80s and 90s. What kind of market was the 80s and 90s? Do you know?
Interest rates were high.
They were high. So what was the stock market like? Amazing. One of the best markets in stock market history. And my guess is in the 70s, you probably didn't have the money to invest. You probably had first had your kids, living off one income, so the person was taking care of the child. You're probably saving for the house, the college. You probably were cash poor, house rich, as they say. But as you get into the 80s and 90s, you probably started accruing some money, you probably put it into investments, and now you've probably seen a return on that money, hopefully, if done properly. So with that, hopefully we're going to put it in the right direction. So there's been a lot of confusion, and a lot of, kind of is a pet peeve of mine when people come to see me and they say, oh, I want growth. Well, there's a very big difference between growth and return, the G versus the R. Does anyone, let's break this down. Let's break this down so I can explain this to you. So there is a formula in terms of investment money. How does the income come in? The formula is total return is growth plus income, or capital appreciation plus interest and dividends. So what on earth does that mean? When you invest in a particular asset, you're making money usually one or two ways. In some cases, both. When you go into growth, let's say you go into a stock. Someone shout out just any company.
General Electric.
General Electric. Usually it's Apple, so I applaud you for giving me something original. So you take General Electric, which actually is doing very poorly these days. With General Electric, you get in, let's say, at 10, you keep your fingers and toes crossed and hope to God it goes up to, let's say, 20 or 30. Only when you cash out do you make the money. Otherwise, it's a paper loss or a paper gain. Is everyone clear on that concept? So in some cases, yes, that applies, but sometimes you have something like, let's say, preferred stock. There are two types of stock, common and preferred. So that's common, we just mentioned. Preferred has that aspect, that component, but it also has the opportunity to give you something called dividends. Dividends, because you own a share, teeny bitty share of the company, and you are technically an owner of that company, they're going to reward you. And for every share you have, you get, let's say, a percentage of the return if it goes up. Well, consistency in income, right? So what they're doing essentially is you get the capital appreciation, which goes up and down, and then you have income coming in, dividends that give you every quarter, they'll give you a certain percentage based on how many shares you have. Those shares give you consistency in income. The big difference is the G versus the I. Now, as we were invested, most people in the 80s were excited about being in growth because of that roaring market. It was an amazing time to be in growth and getting that capital appreciation, right? But people don't understand the difference now. It doesn't matter whether you're getting growth or income. All we care about is the return. Does that make sense? And I know, again, this might seem very trite, but it'll make a lot more sense in a minute when I explain why this is so important. So let me give you an example. Who here, if I say I can get you a 10% CD, who would want a 10% CD? 1, 2, Come on, 10%
Yeah.
in economic climate? How much is the bank getting right now? Less than 1%? So you're saying you wouldn't want 10%? Okay, you're awake, that's good, okay. So here's the irony then. There's no growth in this CD. It's all income. It's all income. CDs generate income. So again, you guys don't care if it's growth or income, it just matters what your return is. So why does that matter? Because essentially what we want to do as you get older, you have to switch mindsets. You have to get away from a growth strategy to an income strategy. And this is what people don't understand. It's very similar to, well, let me take a step back. So you have something called DCA, dollar cost averaging. And you guys are doing this and you didn't even know it. For those of you that have retirement accounts, you're putting a certain amount of money away every month, same amount, and whether the market does good or bad, you're still throwing money in. You're buying more shares for less price, making overall the shares go up higher, right? The value of that stock goes up higher over time. So you guys are doing something great, you didn't even know it, so I applaud you for that. That's DCA. What we don't want is reverse DCA, otherwise known as a systematic withdrawal plan. What does that mean? So you have, on one side, DCA good, SWP, or reverse DCA bad. Most retirees have the misconception that this is your nest egg, and that you're supposed to take a slice when you retire until what happens? There's nothing left. Why is that bad? Income is the outcome. If you don't have income, you're just a homeless person on the street, let's be honest. So with that, this is bad enough in an up market. But as we know by design, does anyone disagree the market goes up and down? Does anyone disagree that, as we know lately? Okay. So that's bad enough when the market's up. When the market's down, what's happening? You're not taking one slice. You're taking 2 or 3 slices every time you withdraw, which is even more catastrophic. Because you're not really, you're cannibalizing your portfolio even faster than normal because it's a down market. Does that make sense? If you leave here with nothing, understand this principle because it's extremely important. It's like going to, when you first got your home. For those of you that were homeowners or are homeowners, you first got your house, you're excited, you filled it with furniture, you had barely any money, you weren't sure, you're still sweating after that first month wondering, did I make the right purchase? Am I able to afford that mortgage? So you run out to the mailbox, you grab that first mortgage payment, and then you see after you made that payment, you think, oh my goodness, I barely even touched the principal, it's all interest. You freak out, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford to pay off this mortgage. But over time, you pay a little more. It's the opposite with SWP, with the systematic withdrawal plan. We try to avoid that as much as possible. Very, very important. And that's what our team does. We sit down, we figure out a way that you cannot have to cannibalize your portfolio. I tell my guys, don't even think about touching your principal until you're in your 80s. Why is that? It's because people who retire at age 60, 62 have a 40% chance out of a couple. There's a 40% chance, man. One of you guys may live another 30 years. So with that in mind, you don't even want to touch the principal until you absolutely have to. And usually it happens about the time you start taking, a little after you start taking RMDs. But we try to push it back as much as possible. We try to plan to age 94, 95. So, and it's not unrealistic because the kids being born in this day and age, as technology grows and we learn more about medicine, nutrition, people start adopting more healthy lifestyles, they say the kids of today will live to 100 to 120. Imagine the strain on Social Security at that point in time. I don't even think about that. But with that in mind, again, you have to plan for this stuff, and we do. Is everyone clear on the growth and income, the difference?
How does that fit into growth and income?
Perfectly into the next slide, sir. So when we talk about withdrawals, I'm guessing because of your ages, everyone here has an IRA plan. I'm not here to sell you on a plan. The question remains, how do you take the money out where it's tax advantageous? And let's look at the 2 different scenarios. We have Roth and we have everything else. What were traditional IRAs made for? I said it earlier. Let's see who's paying attention. This is the quiz. Everyone take out a sheet of paper, number 1 to 10. Just kidding. What were the traditional IRAs, well, both really for our purpose, what were they made for? Pension replacement, their income. Good enough, I'll take that answer. You still win the prize. Income is made for income. But while Roth wasn't necessarily set up just for income, it was constructed so you can take out lump sums. If, for example, you bought a $30,000 car, you want to buy the next Hyundai, how would you take the money? Would you take it out of your traditional or your Roth? Why?
Because you're going to have to pay taxes.
You've already paid taxes on the money that's growing interest and tax. The interest is growing tax-free. So you're correct, man. You want to use for lump sums, you take the Roth money. For traditional IRAs, it was made for income. You're taxed at the end, not the beginning. Does that make sense? So let's talk about how that equates to our current economy. So I want to see a show of hands here. What do you guys think about the current economy we're in today? I don't know how many of you keep up with the news or follow the market, but do you think that, I know they made the unemployment announcement where we've had the lowest unemployment in years. How many people think we're in an amazing economy right now? Everything's where it should be, everything's ripe with money, money's free flowing, no problem. One hand, two? Anyone else? Three? Right here, four. Four? Out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 12 people, 13 people. Only 4 think so? 5.
Good.
You think it's going great?
It's not great, it's good.
It's good.
It's going
So
to
you're somewhere in the good, middle, a little higher than middle, okay. So the answer is we're really not sure, and I'll explain why. Back in the Great Depression, we saw huge lines where people were waiting for the soup kitchens to be fed. What do we have now? We have debit cards. They give you money on debit cards. Guess what percentage of the population is on some form of government assistance? Some form. 40%.
Oh, wow.
40% of some form. So that's not bad enough. Let's look at the volatility we've been having. Why do you think we're having such volatility all of a sudden? We've had an amazing roaring market, and we'll get into this in a minute. From 2009, which is a low mark, our benchmark for a low point, up to now, it's been recently, well, since February, really. We see nothing but growth. Maybe a flat year or two here and there, but overall, we saw a roaring market the last 9 years. Why is that?
Because Trump.
Well, it happened before Trump's regime. It went up higher with Trump, but it was actually started in 2009. I'm sorry, what did you say, ma'am?
Interest rates.
Interest rates are definitely part of it. But what's the higher, that's one of the reasons, but ultimately, why is it? Let me ask you, if you try to set out for the cure for cancer, if you go into your laboratory, you shut yourself in a laboratory, one of two things happen. Either you cure cancer, or when you mix all these beakers and bottles around, there's an explosion. Well, what's happening right now is back in 2009, we were on the verge of financial collapse. There was a meltdown that was about to happen. Ben Bernanke, the Federal Reserve Chairman at the time, really, it was almost like a coup d'etat. It was amazing what happened there. He really pulled a rabbit out of the hat. He saved our economy. We could still be in a depression had something not been done properly. And he did a great job with what he did. He didn't really get the due credit he deserved. But the challenge here is, only last year did Janet Yellen, the chairman at the time, announce that she's going to start unwinding the things they started doing to artificially stimulate the economy. What are some of the things they did to stimulate the economy? Do we know? Interest rates, I'll give you one, that's right. Interest rates. What are the other things? They can buy government securities, and they can print money. They print money. They did all 3 of those things to help our economy. Only last year did they say they're going to stop doing those things. And when they stopped doing those things, what happened? Well, the interest rates went up this year, and what happened? We started to see these highly volatile markets, which ironically are what the natural state of things usually are. The reason things have been going up and up and point, this is getting my point, they've been going up and up and up because we've been artificially stimulated for so long. We will now find out, whether we like it or not, whether we're still going to be in that laboratory experiment. We're slowly unwinding what was done. And that's why we're seeing the volatility. So with that in mind, how much confidence do you really have in the economy now? Is it really all rose-colored, rosy? I mean, we look at things through rose-colored glasses? I mean, we have to know the full story here. And even talking about things like unemployment. The unemployment, yes, we've had the lowest in years, decades, but that doesn't give the full picture. They stop counting. When you give up looking for a job, they stop counting. So you have to see the full picture here. So this is going to emphasize my point. We're going to go over this very briefly. But if we're looking over the last, let's say, 100 years or so, From 1900 to 1920, dead market. World War I, no progress in the stock market. And then we saw a change in 1920s to 1929. Why was that? Why was it called the Roaring Twenties? It wasn't because of the bootlegging and the flapper dresses. Well, that sounds exciting. It was because it was the first time that the average Joe made a killing in the market. Guess what it went up? 400%.
Wow.
400%. And then people got crazy and started buying on margin. They were borrowing to put money in the market. And eventually it crashed. And guess from 1929 to guess when we came out of that Great Depression? 1954.
Oh my.
It took the GIs returning home from the war to take flights to the suburbs. And what's in the suburbs in 1940? Nothing. So they had to buy cars to get to the houses, they had to build the houses, they had to put stuff in the houses. And that started the golden age at that point, from 1954 on up to 1966. About here. And then we saw a lot of political unrest. And then the pendulum swung to the other side. And if you put $1,000 in a CD in 1966, guess how long it took to make it back? 1981. 1981. And then from 1981, as I mentioned before, up to now, well, sorry, up to 2000, one of the best markets in history. But that changed. How did that change? Why did that change? Well, if we look at the last 18 years with our artificially stimulated economy, it's going to look a little like this. This is 2000. We saw a drop. We saw a drop to 2002.
8.
And why did we have that drop?
Because on this, the lowest.
It was the tech crash. If you came to me with a piece of paper, handwritten, single page, double spaced, and said, hey, I have a great idea for .com. I might be a venture capitalist. Here's $1 to $3 million. Go make me money. A lot of great ideas came out of that. Google, Yahoo. A lot worse ideas came out of it, and that brought down our economy. They jump-started by lowering interest rates, one of the weapons that the Federal Reserve has. It went up, and in 2007, we saw the height. And why would people got greedy with things like subprime loans? So we saw another drop. What was the bottom? I mentioned it before, 2009, we're close. And then we saw, here we are in 2018, where the market can either go up, bull market, stay flat, flat market, or go down, a bear market. If you were retiring in 2000, you put your money into the market there, when did you really see your money back? What year?
17.
A little bit earlier. It's okay to interact, guys. Have fun with it.
2015.
Close. 2013. And that's what they say. I'm still seeing people that still are saying you're having problems. But if you put your money in that you were living off capital appreciation, it would not be possible. Think of all the sleepless nights between 2000 and 2013, wondering how you're going to pay your mortgage, wondering how you're going to take care of or give money to the grandkids, or help your kids out. Think of the sleepless nights of whether you can eat. This is the problem we solve. This is what we have to address. How many people here know someone that is in the Guinness Book of World Records? How about 3 Guinness Book of World Records? If we look back at our market history, without exception, every one of these bear markets, there's been not 1, not 2, 3 to 6 market drops. How many have we had so far? We've had 2. Is it possible we have a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th? Not only do I think it's possible, I think it's probable. So knowing this information that even a lot of other advisors have no clue about, get educated, come talk to us, learn this stuff. That's what we're known for, is educating as well as investing. Okay, so if we can just take 5 minutes, if you can open your packets, fill out the feedback form. I want to get your thoughts on what we've seen so far. If you do have your information, just go ahead and put it again so we have it all in one place. Just make it easy for us. And just give us some feedback, give us some thoughts. I'll take another minute or 2. Should I play the Jeopardy theme to inspire you? Or are we okay? If anyone needs pens, let me know. We have extra pens. While you guys are doing that, I will take a question. One question. One question you want to get into. Now, easy crowd.
If you make an excess contribution
Yes.
for 2017, how long do you have to withdraw the money?
October 17th, I believe, in the following year. If you put more money than you should, if you overfunded something. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, do it till October the following year. To take it out without penalty.
October 20.
Good question.
So with that scenario in mind then, if you don't have that much owed on your home, it's better to just pay off your home?
That is a good question. I get that question a lot, and it really just depends on your particular situation. Do you pay off your mortgage and start completely from scratch with nothing in the bank? Does that make sense?
Well, I'm saying,
Or-
now you can't write it off, right? You only write up.
Yes, and if you guys quickly fill that out, we're gonna have time, hopefully, to get to tax changes, which addresses that very topic, yes. You make a great point. All right, guys, do we still have enough information, some feedback? I really appreciate, again, we really appreciate that, we really need it, it's how we can keep doing this complimentary. So it's important you guys keep doing that and make sure we are on track for success there. All right, so let's go ahead and finish. We have 2 more points of discussion, Roth conversions to the new tax bill. So let's jump right in. What on earth is a Roth IRA conversion? So, quite simply, all you're doing is you're taking a traditional IRA that you've already had, or 401k for that matter, whatever, then you're rolling it over to 401k, right? Why would you do that? So, you're hoping that once you take a hit, in one, I'm sorry?
You mean you're rolling it over to Roth?
That's correct. You're going from a traditional to a Roth. You can do that.
Yeah, you said IRA.
Oh, did I say? I'm sorry. Yes. So you're going from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. Is that clear? Okay. Sorry. Thank you for catching that. So why would you do that? Well, if you ask different people, they're going to give you different input on Roth conversion. Some people think it's the best thing in the world. Some people think it's the worst thing in the world. And the truth is, it's really somewhere in between. And really, this is one of these things we can't really give you a specific answer. It's going to be based on your particular situation. Another reason to come talk to me. But the reason you would do it is because you didn't want to be taxed on interest and dividends. We'll go into more detail. So, who can do it? Is this one of these things where it's a good thing, too good to be true? The answer is no. Anyone can do it. Doesn't matter your age. Doesn't matter your income. Doesn't matter whether you're working or not. So that's always a good thing. We like that. What are the benefits? Well, one of the potential benefits is if there are changes in our tax code, which Congress is very well known to do, as it did last year, then if you're worried it's going to be detrimental, that would be one reason to do a Roth conversion, right? Really, it's going to be based on your particular strategy, based on tax rates today versus what you think it would be. It's going to be based on whether you think you can save money on Medicare or a strategy when talking about Social Security. So there are reasons we can sit down and talk about why you should do it. But ultimately, it boils down to your particular situation. So what are the risks of doing a Roth conversion? Well, you have to be very careful doing it. You have to do this with the white gloves because you may trigger certain tax implications like an AMT tax. There are no guarantees that you'll get the advantageous performance that you might get in your portfolio. You might be up or down at that particular point, whether your portfolio is up or down. That is one of the reasons that will dictate whether you should do one or not. There's really no guarantee that there will or won't be any changes. Really, it's about your personal belief in the tax code. So we do know that, actually, I'm about to get ahead of myself. I was going to say that we do know that there's going to be a sunset on all the rules that were just established this year. We'll have a sunset clause in 2026. So everything that happens in the tax code is potentially obsolete in 2026. But we don't know that because, again, they could change that too. So let's talk about that new tax bill. How does it affect IRAs? Well, here's some overview. Just on a very high level, just quickly, before we talk about what is not, what is effective with the IRAs, let's talk about what is not. Quickly, personal exemptions, they're gone. They're gone. Kiddie tax doubled, standard tax deduction roughly doubled, the state tax threshold raised. Mortgage interest deduct it's now $750, but there's a grandfather clause in mill. The 39.6 bracket now 37. They raised to 600. So the more money you make, the more advantageous it'll be to you. So how does this still pertain to IRA accounts? IRA accounts. So you used to be able to go, if you changed your mind, you could go from a traditional to a Roth. And if you said, no, I don't like this, you can go back. That's called a recharacterization. Gone. You cannot do that any longer. That's the biggest change when it adheres to, when we talk about IRAs. For the most part, when you do the conversion, you'll be free of most estate taxes. We like that. It'll be less of a cost to you. It'll be less expensive because of those higher thresholds. This is kind of really, doesn't directly affect IRA, but it's something to know. You can gift more. That's good if you're gifting money away to your grandchildren. And for that reason, tax-free funds to the grandchildren, you can leave more. And then this is what people seem to notice the most, because for those of us that aren't, those of us that are more equity challenged, as we'll say, we take more notice of this. And that is the capping of the state and local deductions is $10,000. That's huge, right? So that's a big, big factor that's affected. And then I put a little quote here from this person by the name of Daniel Hopp, who is he's a money manager. And he said the tax plan will help out corporations a lot more than the average Americans. And I really believe that. I think that, yeah, maybe we'll see some savings depending on what your assets are like, but overall, it definitely benefits corporations more than the average American. So again, come talk to me about these changes. A lot to do here. This is me going through this in seconds, but really there's a lot of layers here. More changes since 1986 tax plan. That's the last time they changed it this much, so be aware of that. We talked about a lot. You guys made it and you're all awake, so I'm excited, thank you. We talked about the different types of IRAs, the difference between traditionals and Roths. We talked about different thresholds, Roth conversions, how the new tax bills affected these conversions. So it's a lot, and I need you time to just take time to absorb all of it. It's a lot to absorb. We talked about the theory. Now let's talk about the practice. Come see me one-on-one. We'll go over that. If anything, for those of you who've really been paying attention, all you'll understand is everything we discussed is only going to generate more questions. That's usually what happens when you talk about taxes. So if you want answers to those questions, again, it's completely complimentary. Come see me, we'll discuss. I now open the floor to any questions.
So, if you're retiring, although the weather's really good, California doesn't seem like the best place to retire.
Right.
So what state, besides Florida, and that?
Well, that's going to be based on a lot. Where are your grandchildren? How often you want to see your grandchildren? What kind of a deal are you going to get on your next property? There are a lot of factors coming into play to answer that question. I mean, there are places that are more tax-friendly, like Vegas in some cases, for example. A lot of people are taking flights to the Sun Belt, places like Arizona, Florida, in some cases, creeping up there. We have to worry about global warming there. You can go to places in the Midwest that you can get property very cheaply and live off what you once were making here, but who wants to in some cases. To go from this beautiful weather to the middle of Montana, that's a real cultural change.
Is it hard to establish residency, like say we were to have a second home in Nevada?
Well, is it hard? Okay, so those are several questions.
Well,
is it hard to establish residency? No. Can you have a second home and establish residency there? Yeah, you have to prove that you're now a resident there. So it really depends. That's something we would sit down and talk about one-on-one.
So it has to be so many months.
Well, that's something that there are a lot of issues there. We have to sit down one-on-one and discuss that. And we would talk about that very thing. And that's something I've talked about on many occasions with some of my clients. And a lot of people I do know that have fled to other more affordable areas. Because, I mean, look at real estate. Real estate, we could once buy, for example, Culver City, right? Culver City, I remember just looking at a place where I thought at the time it was overpriced at $300,000 for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. That same property that I was debating whether to invest in is now worth easily just under $1 million. So, and it's nothing. I mean, it's a shack. It's a tiny little bungalow. So with that in mind, I mean, as things go along, both the rent, even renting, it gets more expensive. We've seen astronomical increases, as much as 14 to 20% in terms of increases in real estate alone each year. That's not sustainable.
Does California tax the pension?
Does it tax pensions? Income is taxed. Any kind of income. That's income. Yes?
Do you know the threshold for earnings that, for contributions?
Yes, we would talk about that in 101, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
You don't remember?
that's something we would discuss on 101, yeah. I mean, it's a table I look on. I'm a smart guy, but I'm not Ray Man, you know, so. Okay, I'll take one more question, then we have to wind things up. We have limited time,
Do you think
unfortunately.
the tax changes are good?
Depends, what kind of income bracket are you in? Yes.
For IMD, for you start after the age 70 and a half, right?
Yes.
And before that, before 70 and a half, if I go back to work, but
Yes.
in different company, and build up another 401k, how IMD work?
Oh, good question. So if you have a retirement account and let's say you're at 70, right? And then you're there working there for a couple of years, you do not have to take RMDs from that particular requirement, that particular retirement account, sorry. However, if you have rollovers or other retirement accounts that are outside of that job where you're currently working, you would have to contribute your RMDs. So if you're still working at that particular company,
Different company.
yeah, if it's a different company, and you start a new plan with that company, you would not be required to take RMDs out of that particular company's retirement plan. But your old companies, you would. Now understand, I give other seminars, as I mentioned before, Social Security, RMDs. There's literally RMDs I have a 2-hour presentation on because there's so many details. And understand, the devil is in the details. And that's why you want to come see me. But with to answer your question, sir, RMDs, they put a firewall between different accounts. Meaning, your IRAs are added and deducted differently than, let's say, a 401k, right? So with your IRAs, you can all add them up, and then you can take them different ways. Maybe a little bit of each, take out the ones that aren't performing, versus if you have a 401k, you're taking all out of that one 401k, that's it. So it depends, there are different strategies for different accounts. There are many reasons to come see me. Guys, thank you very much. I look forward to speaking with you. Hopefully you scheduled the time appropriately so I can help you with your particular situation. And you've been a great audience. Thank you very much. Have a great day.